Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Midweek Motivation. My name is Brina, and I'm just so grateful that you've chosen to join me today for another word. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and share the video. I would love for you to do that, and I would also love for you to comment. Tell me what you think about what we're going to talk about today. All right, so today's word is going to come from the book of Joshua, chapter 11, and I'm going to turn there now. Chapter 11, verses 16 through 20, and then verse 23. So reading from the New International Version, it says, So Joshua took the entire land, the hill country, all the Negev, the whole region of Goshen, the western foothills, the Arabah, and the mountains of Israel with their foothills. From Mount Halak, which rises toward Seir, to Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon, below Mount Hermon. He captured all their kings and struck them down, putting them to death. Joshua waged war against all these kings for a long time. Except for the Hivites living in Gibeon, not one city made a treaty of peace with the Israelites, who took them all in battle. Verse 20, For it was the Lord himself who hardened their hearts to wage war against Israel, so he might destroy them totally, exterminating them without mercy, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And then verse 23. So Joshua took the entire land, just as the Lord had directed Moses, and he gave it as an inheritance to Israel, according to their tribal divisions. So the word I want to share today is don't give up. Don't give up. So Joshua, who's the main character here, was the successor of Moses as the leader of the Israelite people. So Moses was the one who led the people out of Egypt and out of captivity toward the promised land. This promised land, was actually promised to the descendants of Abram way back in Genesis chapter 15, in fact, verses 18 through 21. I won't take the time to read that now, but I encourage you to go back and read so you can see when this promise was made to the Israelites by God for this land. And when you read that, you'll see that there are people already living in this land that God has promised to Abram. And we know that Abram would eventually become Abraham. So between the time the promise was made and the time of Joshua and the Israelites actually taking possession is many hundreds of years. We know that the Israelites were in captivity for 400 years. It took them 40 years to wander in the wilderness. So we're talking many hundreds of years between the time of the promise and its fulfillment. So in the passage today, as I said, Joshua is leading the people because Moses has died by this point. And he's leading them into the promised land. But that just did not happen. They just didn't walk into the promised land to say, hey, this is ours. They had to work for it. If you read the previous chapters in Joshua, you'll see that they had to fight. Literally, they had to fight to take possession of the land and to remove the inhabitants who were already there. They had to put in some effort. They had to put in some work. And as they were fighting step by step, battle after battle, they experienced some successes and they experienced some defeat. So for example, we see in Joshua chapter 6 that, and you may know the story, they took possession of Jericho when the walls came down. That's Joshua 6. So they had success there. And then in the next chapter, chapter 7, they experienced defeat, where they were defeated and some of their soldiers were killed because of the sin of one person. So they had their ups and they had their downs. but they didn't give up. And so that is the word for today. I don't know if I said it, but that's the word for today, or the phrase for today: don't give up. They were eventually successful. They were eventually able to take possession of the land and live in it, but they didn't give up. So what's the lesson for us today? God has given us, you, me, a promise. And it may have been a long time ago. And you may not be seeing the manifestation of this promise, but you know that what God said to you. But you may beginning to wonder, when is it going to happen? Well, it's not just going to happen. You're going to have to put in some effort and some work for it to come to pass. There is some work on your part, on my part, that has to be done so that we can receive the promise, so that the promise can be manifest in our lives. For the Israelites, that work meant fighting, going into battle, making the journey to the promised land so that they could start to possess it. What if they decided, after they had made it through the wilderness, right at the edge of the promised land, what if they decided, we'll just stay here? They never would have received the manifestation because there was still some work that they had to do. God told them that they were going to have to take possession of it from the people who lived there. Again, that was back in Genesis 15. So if they had decided to just remain right on the edge of the promised land, they would never have received the promise. So my word for you today is to encourage you to not give up. God has made a promise to you in your life. Don't expect it to fall from heaven. It's not just going to appear. There are some things that you will need to do, that I will need to do, to move toward it, to move forward in it. And God will show you what those things are. And as you're doing the things that God has told you to do to move toward the promise, it's going to get hard. Amen, somebody. This is not going to be an easy journey, but don't give up. Keep pressing, keep moving forward, keep believing. You will have some successes along the way. You may have some defeats along the way, just like the Israelites did. But as you are moving forward, being obedient to what God has told you to do and not giving up, your promise will become manifest in your life. Now, God is not going to give us the timing, right? Just like he didn't give the Israelites the timing. He didn't give Abram the timing as to when his descendants would possess the land. In hindsight, we know that it was many hundreds of years, but God didn't tell Abram that at the beginning. So God doesn't tell us when our promise will be made manifest in our lives. So we just have to keep going. We just have to remain obedient and not give up. Through the ups, through the downs, we have to stand firm. So are you ready to fight? Figuratively, I mean. Don't give up. You know what God has promised you. I know what God has promised me. And as we move step by step, little by little, day by day, we are coming closer to the manifestation of that promise, but we can't quit. We can't just stop short of our promised land. So, and even when it doesn't look like it's going to happen, don't give up. Trust what God told you. If he promised it, it will come to pass. Don't give up. So that's the word for today. I hope that word has been a blessing to you. Don't forget to like and share the video.